Good morning. Good morning. It must be 9 a.m. Monday morning. It is Monday, the 3rd of October, and we are on Makeup Monday show. Those of you new to the show, I'm Cheryl Andrews, also known as the Listening Detective, and this is the show where we help you achieve success without stress by sharing stories, strategies, and questions that can help you get clarity of what you want and the confidence to make it happen. And today is no different. The theme today is social media overwhelm. So we'll be doing a series over the last few weeks about all different kinds of overwhelm, the ones that I'm aware of anyway. If you've got any that I haven't mentioned so far, please do bring them to my attention. So episode 1, we did diary overwhelm. Week 2, we did emotional overwhelm. Then we did the cycles of overwhelm. So actually having overwhelm with overwhelm. And last week we did the financial overwhelm. And today we are doing social media overwhelm. Now, for those who are watching on LinkedIn, my apologies, because you'll see that it says episode 6. And actually, I realized about 5 minutes before I went live that it should be episode 5 because we missed the week of the Queen's funeral and I had forgotten to shift the numbers along. So we are actually on episode 5. And if it gives me the opportunity, I will go back and change it live in LinkedIn later. But I wasn't allowed to do it now from StreamYard. Whoever's with me this morning, please say hello. Good morning. It's always lovely to have someone live. So today we're going to be talking about social media overwhelm. We're going to talk about what is it, why does it happen, and what can you do about it? And of course, this is my take on it. So please, if you have a different perspective, if you have a similar perspective or experience, please comment below. This is not a show that's all about saying this is why it's happening. This is just my experience of having listened to lots of people over the last 14 years, where people come to me with overwhelm, and my job as the listening detective is to listen and ask questions that will help settle the stress chemicals in their brain, get them back to that place of curiosity where they can be fascinated about the patterns and the process and the things that trigger overwhelm for them, and then ultimately change that pattern of behavior and that response to situations. And so social media for me, I think what it is for me, overwhelm is either if you're in a business owner and there's so many different platforms and you're trying to communicate and send your message out to lots and lots of people. One of the biggest things I think that's the challenge is, one, the number of platforms. And therefore the overwhelm comes because of the quantity and the number of people that you need to be putting stuff out to. But of course, then there's all the different rules. On this platform, you have to be like LinkedIn. They'll say to you, it's got to be very professional and it's not there for your personal. You don't put pictures of cats and dogs, etc. However, the reality of the situation is that in the workplace, water cooler conversations would be about what you did at the weekend, maybe if your partner's getting on your toot or whatever. And actually they are part of the business world, but they wouldn't necessarily have taken those conversations into the business meeting. And so you'd stay on track and you'd be very structured and you'd have a framework. And so LinkedIn, there's these rules that sort of says, actually, let's behave on this platform as though we're in a business meeting and we've got objectives and we've got a limited amount of time and we want to be, effective and efficient. Whereas Facebook is, perhaps more familiar, more family orientated, more about your personal life, much more behind the scenes, or at least that's how I tend to work them. That's how my box, the definitions, if you like, or criteria. And then you've got Twitter, which for me is about how you can connect with lots of different people. You don't have to have permission to follow, or you can tag them, but you have to be able to say it in a few words. So no surprise, if you know me well, you'll know that I'm not very good at Twitter and I don't do it very well because I tend to write an essay rather than a short story. Not something that's my strength at the moment, which is one of the reasons I get into overwhelm with social media. Is often I'm someone who likes to give context. I like to tell a backstory, and I find it very difficult to get it down to something very short. And so it takes me quite a bit of time to go through that process. And quite often I don't have a huge amount of time. Therefore, I end up doing the long stories. So one of the reasons why we can get into overwhelm social media is because there's so many platforms out there, and every single one of them has got a different set of rules. The other reason is that when we put stuff out, we then invite, or we expect, or we want, or we get a whole load of feedback. And quite often, people, in my experience, I talk about this with my clients in the confidence model, is they don't chat with purpose. They're not consciously aware of whether they're putting that out there because they want support, whether they want encouragement, whether they want, so they don't ask a question, they don't tell people why they're talking. So let's take Facebook. If you have a vent or a rant there, the likelihood by human nature, if we go talk from a place of drama, for example, if we were persecuting somebody or putting somebody down, if we were rescuing somebody or trying to help somebody, or if we were being the victim, it's really tough for me. The likelihood is we're going to get one of the other drama positions back in terms of the response that we get. So either people will, if we've criticized one person, might criticize us. If we've been the victim and said, how tough it is for us and how, we're not okay, then some people may persecute and tell us, well, you need to buck up, or you need to just do whatever. Some people might rescue and try to offer help, assuming that we can't do it ourselves. And other people will match us with the victim, going, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I feel really terrible too. And so what happens is we put this stuff out there without really consciously being aware of what our purpose is. Now, some people like to rile up the crowd and they're okay with it. Those of us that are more sensitive, often the response that we get, people take it as a personal reflection, whether they're liked or not liked, rather than realizing that whatever you put out is you're going to create or evoke reactions and responses in people, and they will or will not respond accordingly. So we've got all the different platforms and then different rules, and then we've got the different purposes for putting stuff out there. Some people are not consciously aware of it, and some people are. And one of the things I know from working with Alison Fewings in the LinkedIn Collective is, and also with my Facebook manager, Susie Fido, is that, I'm got sort of headings, so I'm thinking about, is this post I'm putting out there one to entertain? Is it one that's going to be educating? Is it one to be empowering? Is it a conversation? Is it about connection? Is it a promotion? Am I selling something? And so I have those kind of headers. And what I know is that I'm really comfortable in that business meeting where I'm talking about what we do and I'm selling something and I'm keeping to an agenda. But personally, who I am as a person, I'm less comfortable when I'm in those social environments where the conversations are more about the weather. I'm not particularly great with small talk about weather. I get bored and frustrated with people who are complaining about whether it's Brexit or whether it's COVID or the economy or the recession or whatever it is. If we have the same conversations over and over again, I lose interest and I'm not very engaged with them. So I find just the small talk kind of stuff more challenging. So first of all, we've got the whole rules of the social media platforms that we've got to work out what the algorithms are. How do you play the game? And then the second one is we've got our own personal preferences. We've got our own levels of confidence. So, business wise, yes, I can go out there and do my performance. Socially, that's, people who know me socially will know that I'm either dancing and moving quite a lot or not really saying very much when I'm in a social environment. I'd much rather be one cooking the dinner or organising the party than having just chit chat. And that may not be completely true. Anyone who knows me really well, feel free to correct that. So this is why and what is happening with social media. And one of the models that I want to talk to you about today that I have shared before, and I've inadvertently, I've sat down without my mark pens handy, but let's see if I can do this. So if there's the triune brain I talk about a lot. So if you think about this, there's a little part of the brain that's the reptilian brain. And this is the part of the brain that's at a very basic level. It's not very clear, is it? I do apologise. Reptilian brain. Let's see if I can get a pen that works better than that one. Bear with me while I rummage. No, not much better, but reptilian brain. So imagine there's a part of the brain which is at a very basic level is wanting to know that you're safe, that you have enough food, that you have enough shelter, enough protection from the elements. So that's, when we start having conversations about recessions and money and fuel expenses, etc. These are conversations that we picked up from last week doing Financial Overwhelm and talking to Helen Monahan about financial resilience. It's really important that we do consider what if. So we have had the conversations in our house about what if the fuel bill goes up, what we're going to do, how can we save money, where else can we cut our costs. We've had those conversations. But with social media, what can happen is we have this constant barrage of information keep coming to us that could mean that even when we have sorted it out in our own head, even we've made a decision like this is how we're going to manage, this is what we're going to do, we have that doubt, that constant coming back in that, will we be warm enough? Will we be able to keep our roof over our head? What is the impact of recession going to be? So that's the first part. The next part is that there's the mammalian brain. I'll see if I can get a pen that writes a bit better this time. So the mammalian this is the part of the brain where we're basically wanting to know that we're pack mentality animals at the end of the day as humans, and that we want to know that we belong. Well, here's the thing. We were never necessarily designed, and our brains were not designed to be able to cope with trying to work out how we fit in with 8 billion people. Your tribe might have been your family, or your community might have been a village of 20 or 30 people. And as we've advanced in technology, and as the age of information has expanded and we've got more and more access to more and more people, of course, now what we've got is more and more, just like the platforms, we've now got more and more people with lots of diverse rules, lots of diverse values. And two things will be happening. One, we're going to be exposed to things that we just didn't know before. I was just talking to my family yesterday. We were watching the interview from Lewis Hamilton about, I think it's Black History Month. And, when I listen to that, it saddens me, and I'm listening and I'm thinking, yeah, I didn't know about any of that. I wasn't exposed to it when I was through my education. But also the other side of it for me personally is that I'm white, and I feel shame for my heritage. I feel disappointment. I don't really want to be connected with. I remember visiting Dublin a couple of years ago with my husband, and we were going around the museums, and they were talking about what the British had done to the Irish. And I remember thinking, God, I better not speak. I better not say anything right now, because I felt quite threatened. I felt quite unsafe. And one of the things about social media is that we are putting ourselves out there with our thoughts, our feelings, our opinions, our suggestions, our offers if you're in business. And we're exposing ourselves to like 8 billion people who have different heritage, different life experiences, different rules, values, beliefs. And so what can happen at the mammalian brain is basically looking for, how do we do things around here? What are the rules? How do I keep safe? Who's in charge? In order that you can feel resourced. And when we put ourselves on social media, what we're doing is we're opening ourselves up to this a massive world of gorgeousness, of if we can come to it with curiosity and like, oh, that's interesting, that's how they experience the world. Whereas if your system is going, oh my God, they believe this and they believe that, and I don't know where I belong and I don't know where I fit in, and your system is constantly upset and unsettled because it doesn't know where you belong or how you fit in, then actually being on social media is going to put you into this sort of, the mammalian brain is going to be like, well, I don't know if I belong, therefore I don't know if I'm going to have a roof overhead, I don't know if I'm going to be safe. And then we get into this sort of flight, flight or freeze behavior where we're either very angry or we're very sad, or we just want to shout at people, or we just want to run away, we want to get away from everywhere, and we end up in this flight, flight or freeze position. So what we're hoping to do and where we need to be, and I spend most of my time with my clients, is trying to stay, really sorry about the very faint pens, but we're trying to stay in the neocortex part of the brain, or as I call it, the clarity brain. And that's the part of the brain at the front of the neocortex at the front, which is the place where we do our problem solving, we make decisions, we can think with clarity, we can spot patterns, etc. But when we are in flight, flight or freeze, so if our mammalian brain's like, oh my God, I don't know if I fit in, I don't know if I belong. And the reptilian brain's go, well, if we don't belong, we're not going to get paid. And if we don't get paid, we can't pay our mortgage. And if we can't pay our mortgage, we haven't got a house to live in. And we've got all that going on. Then we are not going to be a very good place to make good decisions about how we respond, or even how we engage, or even what we decide to put out on social media. And so what works for me is to keep bringing myself back to this place of curiosity. So I know that for me, some of my overwhelm with social media can come from second guessing myself, worried about what people think, wanting to include everybody, not wanting to be included, then realize I don't want to be included. So there's all this mammalian brain stuff going on. So the three things I do with clients is, first of all, get clarity of what you want. So if social media was just the way you'd like it to be, it would be like what? And for me, what I've realized is social media, for me, is this ability to tap into and connect with up to 8 billion people. But I also know when I go through the Do Delegate or Ditch Foundation course for my clients, when I look at what I need to work, learn and live at my best, I need those times. I like occasionally being with big groups of people, large groups of people, but I then like being with smaller groups, and then I like being with just me and my husband, or just one-on-one with a friend or a girlfriend, and then I need some time alone. And for me, it's a balance between big group and time alone. It can vary from time to time, but whenever I tap into social media, I'm aware that I'm tapping into a big pool of people. And actually, as I'm saying that out loud to you today, what I'm realizing is that quite often I think I'm tapping into a big pool of people, and that is my model for it. And therefore I can only do that so often. And yet for business, the guidelines are show up, be visible, keep showing up, be here. But here's the thing. If you show up, I've just realized if I show up as thinking it's an 8 billion people, and nobody responds, nobody answers your post, nobody puts a comment, nobody shares it, it doesn't seem to lead to business, because the purpose was to build relationships in order to be able to help more people. Then you can feel like that expression where you can be in a room full of people and feel really lonely. And so that's one of the things that can be really challenging about social media. So the first thing is to get clarity of what's your purpose for being on there. What would you like to have happen? What is the outcome you want when you put something on social media? And so what works for me is to remember that I put stuff on social media. I do these videos, one, because I want to help people. And so those people who will never, ever hire me as a coach, those people who have never heard of what clean coaching is, or even knows what a listening detective is, don't even know how I can help with overwhelm. If putting a video out on a Monday for 20 minutes, half an hour is going to make a difference to somebody's life, then one of my purposes is to leave behind a legacy of a breadcrumb trail of, it doesn't have to be like this. You matter, and that if you listen to yourself, you change the way you listen to yourself, that you can actually get clarity of what you want by changing your focus and then changing that response. So one of my purposes for doing it is legacy. It's about actually being helpful. It's about being supportive, And I like to be generous with both my time and my money. And both are finite. I have a limited amount of them. So when I put stuff on social media, what I love about it is that it will be there forever, and that people will be able to see this information long after I've left the planet. What doesn't work about it is if I get too hung up on it and make it, about me personally. So if I start to take the number of comments, the number of likes, the responses as a personal reflection of my own value or worth. And so the second thing I do with my clients is, so number one is clarity. Number two is confidence, is to make sure that you are engaging, your purpose for chatting, and that you're engaging with evidence-based feedback. And so for me, what works is to make sure that I am noticing what's working about my social media presence, what's not working, and what could work better. That I give what's working, what's not working, and what could work better equal amount of opportunity. Don't just talk about all the stuff that doesn't work. Don't get all wrapped up in stuff that doesn't, that isn't serving me, but to keep it equally balanced between what's working, what's not working, and what could work better. And more importantly, break it down into hence the detective bit, is break it down into the evidence. So what am I hearing and seeing? So I might hear and see. So for example, last week with the financial overwhelm discussion, I put a post on LinkedIn about my financial advisor, Nick Clegg, and I had the most engagement and views of a post ever. And so it's about noticing that's worked. But equally, I've had, a post that I put out that I thought was quite a really helpful and really resourceful thing. And it was to do with my business, and it had no views at all. And so I can go from one to the other, and then what can happen in the mammalian brain goes, oh, well, actually, that's because it's about somebody else. It's not about you, back to criticizing myself, thinking that this is about my worth. And it's like, no, it's because actually I put the attention on somebody else, and I was thanking them, and there's a whole load of other things. They're part of a big network. And so that's, I can take what worked about that post and apply it to other posts. But also the third thing that I do with clients is to get clarity of what you want, then you have to engage with evidence-based feedback and know your purpose for chatting in the first place. And the third thing is that change is uncomfortable. When we engage with conversations with people and they bring to us a new perspective, and it's not what we were expecting, or it's not what we wanted. So for example, if I put a post out and nobody comments on it, that wasn't what I wanted. Or more to the point, if someone tags me in something, or I read something and it's not what I wanted to hear, and it's not what I was ready for or mentally prepared for, we need to have the right support network in place. And I think that the biggest and fundamental thing is, if we're spending time on social media looking for connection, looking for support, but we don't have that support in the real world. And I know that people on social media are real, but if you don't have that physical connection with somebody that you can talk to, then when things are going really, really tough, you don't have that place to retreat to where you are absolutely supported. Now, as I say that, the irony of it is that I run the Do Delegate Ditch Academy, and we have people all over the country that are part of that membership, and they don't meet physically, but we do meet fortnightly on a Tuesday night from 7 till 9. And I know through all the change from the pandemic, there's been some really strong bonds that have been built, because they knew that every Tuesday night they were going to come and actually have a real conversation and a discussion around what was working for them, what wasn't working, or what could work better. And they would have somebody that would be really able to and willing to listen to them without judgment, assumption, or making suggestions. And if you don't have that kind of support, external from social media, and you don't have clarity of what you want and don't have confidence in yourself, then it's really likely that social media will cause you overwhelm. Now, one of the things that I do love about social media is that it can be used for good. It can be used to spread an awful lot of unhelpful and unresourceful and, what was it they call it? Trolling. People can be really mean and unnecessary on social media, but it can also be used for a lot of good. And that's where I want to finish today's show today. I've got a really big favor to ask of you. You'll see a link in the show notes, both on YouTube, but also on LinkedIn and Facebook. If you're watching this live, there is a link to Susie Fido's Just Giving page. She is our Facebook manager. She's a very good friend of mine, and she's also my collaboration partner. And what she doesn't tell you very much on that particular page is she talks all about the cats. Now, those of you who love animals, you may be very motivated to donate money to help the cats out. Those of you that are inspired by human beings, as I am, I want you to imagine now that Susie and Martin have done so much good for the animals on Kefalonia Island. They have rescued so many cats that they've put themselves in a position now where they've got 40 or more cats, and they cannot no longer get residential property to rent, because there isn't any landlords who will take that many cats on. And in addition to that, a lot of the landlords on the island are now transferring to Airbnb because they also need to make sure they get their maximum income. And it has left them in a position where they are homeless. Now, someone has been very generous and has been very kind and has given them a plot of land. And that plot of land means that they've now got somewhere to have as many cats as they like. They cannot build a permanent building on it. It's an agricultural piece of land. It cannot have permanent building, but they can have temporary buildings. And so what they need to get is either a porta cabin or a one of those, I forgot what they're called now, containers or a caravan. And they desperately need to get that before the winter comes in. Because whilst Kefalonia is a beautiful warm island during the summer for 9 months of the year, come November, come into December, it will be high winds and it will be very cold and it'll be very wet. And currently they don't have running water to the site. They have it on the other side of the field. They need to get piping and plumbing to the actual caravan, but they need a bigger caravan, one that they can actually sleep in, live in, cook, clean and wash themselves in order to be able to look after the animals. And they have a fundraiser going on. So please, with that in mind, please check out the link. Even if you could just put £1 in, if the 1,000 people that I know on online all put £1 on, that would take them £1,000 closer towards their target. And they need to raise £6,000 in order to secure themselves some safe living environments for the winter. So if there's anything you can do to support them, please do. And if you are struggling with social media, one of the things, and you'd like to have a conversation with me about it, I'm really happy to put on let's get together for a couple of hours sometime and have a conversation about social media. What works about it for you, what doesn't work for it, what would work better. Let's get together and let's support each other. And for anyone that comes on that call, all I ask you to do is donate something to Susie's page. So get in touch. Tell me what you're thinking. How are you feeling about social media this week? And I'd like to know more. Let's bring us to the end of today's show then with a bit of clean setup. So just thinking about, I've just been talking, and this is what happens on social media, isn't it? You'd be watching people's videos, you might be reading their posts. And as I've been talking, I want you to notice what was happening for you. What thoughts occurred, what resonated with you? Did anything trigger an emotional response? Did you start to feel some sensations in your body? Do you feel uncomfortable with it? Does something make you feel, ooh, or something make you think, yeah? When we're reading, listening, scanning social media, all the time we're doing that, we're creating a sensory input and our system is listening. My job is to encourage you to really listen to what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and what the impact is on you. And the good thing is with social media, apart from the addictive nature of it, is that you can choose not to be on it for periods of time, whatever that might be. And that goes for, people in your life. If you've got people who trigger you or situations that aren't working for you, you can hit the pause button and take a break from them. So just noticing what's come up for you today, and given what you know now, what would you like to have happen? I've just realised We've got a new colour at the bottom. So those who are watching, I've just been doing some work for another company, and I've just got their branding on the bottom of my banner. So that's just made me chuckle. So yeah, the other Overwhelm is if you're trying to help lots of different people and you put their colour codes into your system, you might end up with their colours on the screen. Think about what would you like to happen? How do you need to be? Whoever just joined me, good morning. We're just talking about social media, and we're just finishing with a clean setup with what would you like to have happen? How do you need to be for that to happen? And what kind of resource or support might you need? Please DM me, message me, get in touch with me. Let me know if you found this useful. If you're on LinkedIn, please ring the bell and keep notifications coming in. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, because that lets me know that some of my stuff that's going out is of value and is helpful to you. If you're on Facebook, please like or follow the page. But please do share your comments below, because when you engage with this, I get feedback. That tells my mammalian brain that I'm not in this big room talking to myself. And that always helps me. And whilst I can do lots of work behind the scenes and be okay with the fact that my value is not based on whether you do or don't engage, it does bring me joy to know that what I'm saying is of help to you. So please let me know what kind of resource or support might you need right now in order that you can be not overwhelmed with social media. And if it's of interest to you that you'd like to have a conversation about social media, get in touch. Let's make it happen and also support Susie at the same time. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next Monday.